All right, yeah! Thank God for fantasy football. I'm Buster Brown, and the show, well, it's called Redemption Rehab. And today, we're here talking about our weekly waiver wire report for week 3 of the NFL season. If you've had a good start, great. If you've had a bad start, well, guess what? We're here to help. So buckle up, get out your popcorn, and let's head over to the chalkboard
and check out the facts.
Okay, here we are back on the waiver wire report for week 3 of the NFL season. Behind me on this screen on RT Sports is the league that I'm in, and there's some available running backs in this 12-man PPR league. I'll tell you right now, it's going to be hard to find a running back. When you go into a draft, you should be looking for running backs, where you're going to get them, and you should load up along with tight ends because they're hard to find on the waiver wire. But one of the guys that you might find this week that you will like is this guy here, Daryl Williams down in Arizona. He's playing against the Los Angeles Rams, so that's a difficult matchup. But the guy that he is backing up was James Conner. James Conner hurt his ankle, so this guy comes in, and Daryl Williams does pretty good. 8 carries, 59 yards, touchdown, caught 2 passes. So that's a pretty good day for the backup who didn't play the whole game. He's probably going to be a pretty decent waiver wire pickup this week. I would be very careful as to how much money you spend, because if James Conner comes back, this guy's not going to play as much, because they also have another guy I like who, if Eno Benjamin's on your waiver wire, go out and get him. He had a decent game. But as far as on this list, I don't really like anybody else. Brandon Bolden, who's been hurt, as you can see here, questionable. He'd be someone I'd be considering picking up because he's going to get some playing time. He used to play for the New England Patriots with the coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. So he might be someone, once he comes back from his injury right here, questionable against Tennessee. So I could see him putting up some decent points. That first game, he didn't even play the whole game. And, he had 3 rushes and, 2 good catches and caught a touchdown. So those are the only 2 guys that I really like. Now, guys that aren't on this list that might be on your waiver wire that you should be considering: Mark Ingram down there in New Orleans. If Alvin Kamara is not going to play this week, Mark Ingram should be the guy you should be going after down there, especially if you have Alvin Kamara. I also like Raheem Mostert down in Miami. Raheem Mostert against Baltimore ended up getting a ton of playing time at the end of that game, caught a bunch of balls, ran a lot, and got decent points. So Raheem Mostert is someone I'd be looking at. I want to show you a couple depth charts here real quick, because players like, Brian Robinson and Marlon Mack, or even Taylor Algier down there in Atlanta, these are guys you should be considering. And let's take a look at some depth charts of some of these teams real quick before we look at some wide receivers, so you can have an idea of why you should pick these guys up. Okay, here we are looking at the Washington Commanders. And you're saying, well, who can I get on these guys? Of course, Antonio Gibson's gone. J.D. McKessic's a good running back. He had an amazing game 2 weeks in a row. If he's on your waiver wire, you should go out and get him. If this guy scores a touchdown, what he didn't, he'd had a 20-point game. Look at all the balls. He caught 7 balls. So in a PPR league, that's huge. That's where he gets all his points at. But there's a guy coming back. His name's Brian Robinson. He's a rookie. He was in a carjacking incident in Washington, D.C., and didn't get to play so far this year. So, he's healthy. He's getting healthy. In the next week or 2, I think you'll see him on the field. So I'd be going out and seeing if Brian Robinson is on your team. We highlighted on our NFL preseason preview show all the rookies, including Brian Robinson. If you get a chance and want to know anything about any of the rookies I mentioned last week or this week or in the future, we did shows on them. And you could just go on Facebook or YouTube, Fantasy Football Redemption Rehab, and look at our NFL preview show. And we show highlights and statistics of all these guys. If you get a chance, you got to check that out. Other guys we told you about last week, Curtis Samuel and Jahan Dotson. You guys got to go out and get these guys if they're already not taken, because look what Curtis Samuel did. If you'd have listened, he got you another 22 points. Same thing with Jahan Dotson, man. He ended up getting a touchdown and got you 18. These are guys you should not be on your waiver wire, and you should go out and get him. I want to mention this guy right here because when we talk about tight ends, we're going to do it. Logan Thomas. If you get a chance to get Logan Thomas, he had 3 catches for 37 yards and a touchdown last week on 5 targets. He used to be a quarterback in college, got drafted by Arizona, got cut, and Washington used him for the last few years as a tight end. He blew out his knee last year and is coming back from knee rehab. Let's take a look at some other running backs before we move on to wide receivers, because they may be someone you want to pick up on your waiver wire or stash on your bench for future use. Okay, last week we showed you this same depth chart. We told you how Jeff Wilson was going to be a major pickup for everybody. Here he is here. Elijah Mitchell got hurt, and this guy was the backup, and he came in. He played decent. As you can see here, 12, 13 points, 18 carries with 2 catches. So he is the guy that everybody went after, and some people paid up to 40% of their fab money. That's their waiver wire money, or use their high priority to get this guy. And the question is, can he stay healthy? Because did San Francisco, Elijah Mitchell couldn't, and his backup, who is Terrion Davis-Price, guess what? He couldn't stay healthy either. As you can see right here, he's out. He had a high ankle sprain during the game. He had 14 carries for 33 yards before he got hurt. He's out 3 weeks, maybe even longer. Those high ankle sprains are tough. We told you we kind of like Jordan Mason last week. We thought maybe he would be the backup. He still is. But the guy we're going to mention and who's our sleeper at running back this week is Marlon Mack. If you get a chance to go out and get Marlon Mack, you should, because I think you'll see Jordan Mason or Marlon Mack back up Jeff Wilson. So if you have Jeff Wilson and you need a running back or a backup, go out and get him. We've got Tyler Algier down there, and he's another rookie in Atlanta. You should consider going out and getting him. He's the backup down there to Cordell Patterson, and I think that he might start to get some more playing time, because I don't see how Cordell Patterson can hold up, man. He's getting beat up big time. So Tyler Algier down there in Atlanta is another rookie. So let's take a look at some wide receivers that can help you this week, because it's important that we get to those guys and get this video done as fast as we can. Okay, here we are back on RT Sports, looking at a waiver wire in a league I'm in. As you can see, we got wide receivers behind us. Noah Brown would be at the top of the list. He seems to be playing really well this week. He plays for the Cowboys. He had a good game last week against the Cincinnati Bengals. As you can see here, 2 weeks he's caught 5 balls, and last week he got in the end zone. I would consider picking up Noah Brown and putting him on my bench, because the guy that you really want is Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup plays for the Cowboys, but he hasn't been active the last 2 weeks. But they're saying he might play on Monday night. If he's available on your waiver wire, that's somebody you should be going out and getting for sure, because he's actually the starter in Dallas. He's going to have a big season once he gets into the flow of things. Another guy we mentioned last week over here is Greg Dortch. But Greg Dortch had a pretty decent day again. As you can see here, we mentioned him last week, 2 weeks in a row. He's had a ton of targets. He got a touchdown last week and scored 13 to 15 points. So he's not a bad player. I know some people that used him in daily fantasy football and threw him in their lineup at the end there in their year long. He did good. So congratulations on that pickup. Other guys we told you about last week that we really like. We like Sterling Shepard. We told you to be careful with this guy because he gets hurt a lot. So if he does play, though, look what he did, man. 10 targets, 6 catches, 34 yards. It was only 9 points. But he does score touchdowns, too. So last week he got you 15 against Tennessee. So the kid can play, and he's going to have a big game against Dallas. Other guys that aren't on this list that we really like, Garrett Wilson had a big game against Cleveland. He had 14 targets last week, got in the end zone, had an amazing game. If Garrett Wilson is on your waiver wire, that's who I would pick up over anybody I mentioned today, along with Jahan Dotson, who we mentioned earlier. And let's not forget about Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers got drafted in a ton of leagues, but if he fell through the cracks and he's available in your leagues, might be the best receiver down there in New England. At least he has been over the past few years, and I look for him to have a big season. Other guys that are probably not on this list that might be on your waiver wire are Treylon Burks. He's another rookie that we focused on in our NFL preview shows. You can see those on Facebook or YouTube, and we showed you highlights of this guy. He's a very good player out of Texas A&M. I would be picking him up along with Russell Gage down in Tampa. I mean, Tampa doesn't have any receivers, basically. They suspended Mike Evans. Basically, Chris Godwin's, they said he's not going to play again this week. So they're starting to run out of Julio Jones. He's got a banged up knee. Probably will play, but you don't know. So who's left? I mean, they got Russell Gage. I'd be going down and getting him. Scotty Miller's down there. He's a good player. Brashad Perryman is also down there. He scored a touchdown. And they just signed Cole Beasley today, so to the practice squad. So there's some possibilities down there in Tampa. I do like their game this week against Green Bay. So we'll see what happens down there. We told you about Joshua Palmer last week. He plays for the Los Angeles Chargers. He ended up having 8 targets and a touchdown. So if you went out and got Joshua Palmer, good job. I did, and I put him in my lineup and helped me win. Other guys I like, Nico Collins down there in Texas. He had 9 targets. A lot of people cut him because he didn't do much the first week, and he's a second-year player. Marquez Valdez-Scantling over there in Kansas City had, several targets. I think he had 7 targets. And if you want a real deep sleeper, and I'm suggesting maybe daily fantasy, or maybe you're just stuck and you don't have anybody else to play at the last minute, Mac Hollis out there in Las Vegas had 8 targets. That's a real deep sleeper this week, but you never know. Well, let's take a look at some tight ends to help you get through week 3 of the NFL season. Okay, guys that I liked at tight end last week, we told you about Gerald Everett. He had 10 targets for the Los Angeles Chargers, so he had a big game. Irv Smith came back from a thumb injury this week. He's probably not on your waiver wire either, but if he is, you should go out and get Irv Smith, Minnesota. He had a good game against Philadelphia Monday night. He had 7 targets and a TD. He looked like one of the better players for Minnesota. I'd be going out and getting Irv Smith. We did talk about Logan Thomas already. He's a tight end I'd be going out after. And another guy that's on this list that I'd be going after is Tyler Conklin for the New York Jets. And in 2 weeks, you can see right here, 7 targets, then 9 targets. He had a touchdown the week before, but he seems to be a guy they're going to in New York. Other guys that we haven't talked about, Mike Gesicki right here for Miami. He does this every year. He starts out slow, and then he comes on strong, and then he fades at the end. They're going to use him. 4 catches, 41 yards, and a touchdown. Got, 14 points. I'd be considering picking him up. Other guys that aren't on this list is Hayden Hurst over at Cincinnati. He's having a decent year. He had 7 targets against Dallas. That's a lot. How about Evan Ingram? He had 8 targets for the Jags against the Colts. So he's part of the game plan down there. And a guy that is my sleeper tight end that I think you should be considering picking up and throwing on your bench is a guy from Baltimore. His name is Isaiah Likely. He's a rookie that we highlighted in our NFL preview show that we did back in April before the draft that you can see on Facebook or YouTube. We highlighted him, showed you his highlights and his stats out of Coastal Carolina and said, this kid can play. And guess what? They agree. They're putting him in the lineup because of injuries, man. So he might be a tight end, but they use him at wide receiver and in the slot. So I'd be looking at Isaiah Likely as a sleeper candidate. Let's quickly take a look at some quarterbacks. Well, if you listened to our show last week, we told you we kind of like Jared Goff. He's got some good games coming up, and he produced 2 weeks in a row. Won the game for him this week. Another 4 touchdowns, 30 points. He did it 2 weeks in a row. So he's a good player. He used to play for the Rams, and now he's playing for the Detroit Lions. So he might have a good season this year. I'd be looking at Jared Goff. He's not on this list. And Carson Wentz came out and is balling for 2 weeks in a row. So he is also someone I would consider. But if you need somebody this week that would be on your waiver wire, that is probably someone you should be consider picking up down here, Jimmy Garoppolo with the injury to Trey Lance. Jimmy Garoppolo came in, didn't even play the whole game, 13, 20, 151 yards and a TD, got 18 points. Well, he's playing Denver, and if you give him the whole game, I could see him putting up 250 and getting 2 touchdowns if you need a quarterback. On this waiver wire, Matthew Stafford's available. Of course, I would be picking him up over everybody I just mentioned. He has last 2 years against Arizona, he's averaging around 20 points. I do like him, although I'm not a big fan of anybody else. Baker Mayfield, that's a tough matchup for him. He's in big trouble. against New Orleans. Daniel Jones against Dallas. That's not good. I don't like Jacoby or even Mac Jones this week. So those are the quarterbacks I do like. If you want to go out and get any of those three, even Joe Flacco, he's had a good couple weeks, man. Look at that, 4 touchdowns against Cleveland and a miraculous comeback. And so those are guys that you could play in DFS, like the daily fantasy sports, or maybe you just need a quarterback for a week if you have someone that you don't trust anymore, like Russell Wilson's not playing well, Dak Prescott's hurt, Trey Lance is gone. So these are some suggestions you should go out and give these guys a try. If you wanted a decent kicker, I want to show you somebody that's on everybody's waiver wire, almost everybody. And the thing you should know is when a guy like Harrison Buckner is gone for a week down here, as you can see, he's questionable again this week. He played in the Arizona game and sprained his ankle and didn't play against the Chargers on Thursday night. Well, he's had a decent couple weeks to heal. I don't know if he's going to be able to be available, but there'd be a kicker I'd be going out and getting for sure. As far as the defense, hey, on this, they got Baltimore Ravens, which I would probably pick them up. But the Atlanta Falcons, how does Atlanta Falcons doing what they're doing? Well, they had 15 points against the Los Angeles Rams. They're playing Seattle in Seattle. Maybe Seattle's defense might be worth picking up. But I tell you right now, if you want a sleeper defense because you don't have anybody else to choose from, because sometimes defenses don't slip through the cracks, because I'm in a league where you can't get a defense, they're gone, you might want to consider Atlanta, and it's a long shot. Anyways, that's it for the weekly waiver wire report for week 3. I'm Buster Brown. The show is called Redemption Rehab. Good luck.